Good evening, and welcome to Nerddom's Terrifier Hour. Today, we will be diving into some of the most terrifying, disturbing, and creepy tales ever told. I'm talking, of course, about Werewolf by Night.
Wait, what? Werewolf by Night? Isn't that a Marvel thing?
It is a Marvel thing, and you are late to covering it. What a perfect time to cover Werewolf by Night.
I don't know what I'm doing. Hey everyone, welcome back to Nerddom, coming to you from a different setup than usual. This is a very special occasion. I absolutely love Halloween time. Everything scary, anything spooky. Recently went to some of the local Halloween mazes at Six Flags and Knott's Scary Farm, and can say I have an absolute blast. I love all the things scary, mazes, scary sets, scary costumes, everything like that. Absolutely one of my favorite genres that I haven't had a chance to get into on the channel yet, but hopefully we can do some future horror things. Also, we've been playing recently released Alan Wake 2 and was having a really great time with that. So I just now recently watched Werewolf by Night that Marvel released last year, re-released this year in color, which I haven't watched the behind the scenes documentary yet to see if it was shot in color and then post-processed. Of course, they always post-process color change, but was it then changed to be black and white? I'm not sure. This is something that I have been waiting for Marvel to get into ever since probably it started. Huge fan right here of the Blade series. I haven't read any Blade comics. Feel free to suggest any Blade comics that you think I should be diving into, because those movies are so sick and I love the mature vampire-ness of it all. Hold on, it's getting too hot in here with the fire. I need to take this jacket off. Much better. Yes, I only have one Halloween shirt, and it is Friday the 13th themed, so awesome. But I'm a huge fan of the original Blade movies with Wesley Snipes, and especially the second one, directed by Guillermo del Toro. That one, I remember not even thinking that it was a comic book movie at the time. I remember it just being a vampire movie. Oh yeah, good coffee. But I remember when those movies came out, and of course I wasn't allowed to see them because I didn't see an R-rated movie until I was probably 13, 14. And that first R-rated movie was The Matrix. So it's pretty tame. But what I do remember it being was, I think I remember watching it with my friend, and it was the second one, and just seeing the vampires, the matureness of it, and then thinking, this is a Marvel thing? This is a comic book thing? So again, let me know any suggestions on any Blade comics or any dark story, horror themed Marvel stuff. I would love to get my hands on some of that. And also going to be diving into probably the ultimate Marvel that they're going to be launching pretty soon too. I'm kind of excited about that because then I can, have a good starting point actually. The real horror fan didn't really come out until I found the Dead Meat channel. And then I really dove deep into horror in general, and I have been a subscriber to the Shudder app, watching a bunch of old movies on there, a bunch of new movies on there. Even when it's not Halloween season, I still am subscribed to Shudder because I do think that horror is a genre that should be protected. It should be built upon, and I know a bunch of horror fans out there that are like, we've been here the whole time. I appreciate that, and I see that, especially on Dead Meat, and we got a bunch of conventions that I would love to go to. I am totally excited to see Marvel taking a stab at it. And I think this is Michael Giacchino, who is, I'm probably butchering that name, who has directed it. And I saw a little bit of the behind the scenes director by night, but it sounds like this was his first directorial job. I know he did the soundtrack, I could be wrong. I know he did the soundtrack for Rogue One, and I'm a huge fan of that soundtrack. It definitely is moving, and I can't believe, I think he wrote it in like a week because they fired the other composer, like, and the movie was coming out very soon, so then he came in last minute and just did a great job. He has a bunch of dark themes that he has in that soundtrack. I mean, he may be a big horror fan, and you can totally tell that he's a big fan of classic Universal monster horror movies with this one. Of course, its dressings is just like a Universal classic horror movie, but it's taking that ingredients and it is injecting a little bit of Marvel humor, a little bit of levity, and also some Marvel stunt work, action. So it is like a little amalgamation. It's more of a Marvel movie with horror elements, and I'll admit I'm completely fine with that. I liked it. I liked the movie. I think it's a good launching off point for this dark, parallel line of storytelling with the main line storytelling, and seeing the monsters on the walls and these hunters. It really does open up an underground, an underbelly of the Marvel universe that we haven't seen before. With all these classic monsters, there's so many cool avenues that they could do with it. I know that they got Blade coming out. I mean, when? I'm guessing 2026, if ever now. Marvel's getting all jumbled up, so who knows what's going to happen. But this could be a very good launching point for the dark Marvel universe. I think this is a really good introduction to these types of characters, the monsters, the hunters, the organizations, like what are they? What is Ted? What is the werewolf? Do the monsters all know each other? Is there a league of monsters? Is there some type of rivalry between them? Because at one point, forgive me, I don't know the guy's real name, but he's the werewolf, and it looks like he's either looking at, I don't know if it's a vampire, I don't know if it's Dracula, I don't know if it's Man-Bat. Wrong universe, Matt. Nerd dumb right here. But what's funny is that he sees them on the wall and he's like, I've never seen him so alive, so that's funny. There's a bunch of really cool quips and little things that he says that kind of clues you in that he's not a hunter. And it's interesting when she's introducing all the characters. She's like 20 kills, 37 kills, something blah blah blah, and then she gets to him and she's like 100 deaths, and one guy's like 100. By the way, shout out to Lord Karstark from Game of Thrones. He did a funny job. He did a good job in here. I believed him as a hunter Scotsman. I believed him as a hunter Scotsman for sure. And honestly, a shout out to everybody. I think costumes were great. I think the actors did a good job. Directing, I would say it was good. And I'm not sure if, again, they shot it. Did they shoot it in color? I bet they did. You can't really shoot it in black and white nowadays. But I'm sure they shot it in color and then post-processed it in black and white. So it is kind of interesting to see the dynamic between the modern day action, like stunt work. Honestly, the lady playing the stunt actress for the main actress, I forgot her name too. She was doing some Black Widow moves, and I was like, is it the same stunt person? They keep hiring the same stunt lady to do all the same stunt work for all the women, because she did like the Hurricane Rana around some people, and I was like, is it the same person? And it looked like the same clothing too as Black Widow in Civil War. It had like the leather jacket and like the jeans and the boots. So I'm like, are they just reusing costumes? But at the end, spoiler, when it becomes color, you see that their clothing it's different. She's wearing like a red leather jacket versus in that movie it was like a light brown kind of jacket, like a sandstone. But yeah, the directing, I liked it. I think it did a good job of the set pieces. It did look like a very small set, and it didn't have many places, so of course they expanded it with a little bit of CGI, but it looks like they had maybe 2 or 3 sets in the maze portion and maybe a little bit of extension in the forest afterwards. And then they had the internal set, but I'm completely fine with it not taking place in multiple places. That's kind of, horror in general. It can only take place in a room. And they were kind of cluing you in on the werewolf not being comfortable with all these killers in the room. Maybe werewolves are kind of a rare breed, so they don't get out much. So them thinking that he's just a normal hunter, and then him cluing in with all the face paint, like about maybe all the generations that these hunters have killed, maybe kind of like a dig at these guys. Really cool touches. Let's talk about the big thing. Let's talk about the black and white. I did watch the original in black and white, and there is something totally to say about it being in black and white versus color. There's something nostalgic about it, of course, but at the same time it does give a creepy, more eerie, classic feel to the story and to the sets, and the lighting did really well. With lighting with black and white, you do have to do it a little bit differently than in color. You know, you have to think about it because of the harshness of black and white and the grays. With color, you're able to get, I think, different conditions. But with black and white, you do have to think about what the shadows are going to be saying. You know, think about Nosferatu from back in the day. That movie isn't very scary per se, but what you're getting out of it is really creepy imagery, and they're playing very well with the shadows, with the, you know, the darkness, everything like that. And that's something that I think modern horror needs to start playing with as well. I think Babadook did a pretty good job with that, and this is just going all the way back to the Mummy, Frankenstein, Dracula, you know, the Universal monsters, which I'm a huge fan of. I love that classic horror. I really do want to see, you know, Frankenstein and all these gothic horror monsters that from the 30s, you know, that I really like. And of course, if you haven't seen Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, that is a really awesome movie to watch, because it's basically a Universal horror movie with Abbott and Costello dropped in. And of course, the Wolfman is in there as well. He's actually the main character that talks to Abbott and Costello. So really cool to bring a classic horror monster to the Marvel universe and to see what this Marvel universe is like with them. This is something that I would love to see more of. I want to see more of this underbelly. There may be the heroes, like it talks about in the beginning, how on the known universe there are these heroes, and it brings up the Avengers. So this, to me, they may have set it away, but this, to me, this takes place in the same universe, in the underbellies, and this is something that I want to see more of. As a horror fan and as a Marvel fan, I think it's really cool. So going back to the directing too, the action is well done. The stunt work, really cool. The hallway scene with the door closing slowly, that was really cool. It looked like a little bit of the stunt work was the times where they're like waiting to do something, you know, like they're waiting in the corner for action to come upon them, talking about the guards. Like there's one dude in the back left that just, he's like waiting, or maybe he's pretending to be scared, which I guess, you know, you could say that. But the werewolf just completely annihilates these folks. And this is probably the most gruesome imagery that we've seen Marvel do as well, with actual blood on the lens, with blood being, you know, dripped out of cut limbs, a bunch of stuff like that. Again, I'm rooting for it, you know. I would say the Marvel fan base is mostly my age at this point, maybe 30s, which is interesting because I think Marvel can live in two universes, and I don't think Marvel knows this. You can have your, you know, young Avengers, mainline Avengers, and then you can have a darker underbelly, maybe criminal, I'm looking at you, Daredevil, and Defenders, and a horror thing. Like, why can't Marvel be all these things? Why does it always have to be mainline, you know, studio friendly Marvel stuff? Most likely, I'm guessing because of the toys, but again, if you're talking to someone who is in their 30s, we buy toys. We go to that Target section. I didn't even know there was a Target section for collectibles, but I saw all the horror toys that they had. I almost threw that stuff in my cart. I love that kind of stuff. And to see, like, it's pretty high quality toys too. I almost tossed it all in, just paid for it, then put them up around the room or something. I don't know, just to show like my horror fandom a little bit. But we have disposable income, and we are also the ones that get to introduce these characters that we like to our kids. You know, people in our age group have kids. So that's where you could get them in with the young Avengers, with the mainline Avengers, and then with the adults, you can have that stuff too. Have it good for them to watch too, but then have a little bit of dark areas, the criminal stuff, the not safe for work stuff, the criminal underground, the horror underground. Have those different niches inside of Marvel. I think that's an awesome idea. With that out of the way, this was a bold choice. This Werewolf by Night was really good springboard into what could be, and I'm honestly a little bit shocked that they allowed it. I love it being a special feature, but I want it to be something bigger. But at the same time, I don't want it oversaturated. When you release too much stuff, as we've seen with Star Wars, it gets diluted. The quality kind of goes down, and people stop wanting to work for you. I'm looking at you, CG houses, which isn't your fault. They're making you do some crazy stuff at the very last minute. I cannot imagine what kind of stress you guys are getting put under. But maybe, once or twice a year, maybe once, a horror Marvel movie that starts creating the dark Marvel cinematic universe, which is, you could have them overlapping with each other. Totally. I think it would be really cool to see these horror characters, Blade, for instance, cross paths with the mainline Marvel universe. And maybe that's what's going to happen when, if, whatever, Marvel gets reset. But that's a different talk for another day. I'm waiting to review Loki. The 4th episode just happened, and I'm waiting for the last 2 to really review it, but it's okay so far. But this could be a really good springboard to something in the future. And I'm actually kind of stoked that they are giving a slight chance to something like this. If you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you're a fan of horror stuff, I would definitely give Werewolf by Night a watch. I think it's a fun romp into the horror subcategory that Marvel could introduce. And it was a fun ride, and it's not too long. I think it's like 40-50 minutes, maybe an hour or something like that. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. But it's really cool, and it's fun to see Marvel, jacking up fools, messing people up, introducing some darker undertones, some really darker undertones. Not even just like criminal, actual dark horror and undertones. I can't say this word. The next thing I can talk about is Werewolf by Night in color. I did watch this as well, and I don't think it had the same impact as the black and white version. There is a part, spoilers, there is a part where the black and white does turn into color near the very end. And it is kind of like a moment of release. It's kind of like an introduction to what the horror cinematic universe could be versus always being in black and white. So, they're bringing you in with the black and white nostalgia feel, but then they're kind of bringing you into the modern age with the color being bled very slowly into the black and white. But watching the entire movie in color kind of did take away some of the impact that the imagery did have. A little bit of the fun. It made it more generic to me. Maybe that's just because I watched it originally in black and white, and I think that's the prime way to watch it. But this, with it in color, there really isn't much to say other than the impact to me was not there. The feelings weren't there, not even the nostalgia of the horror franchises, but the artistry was not there. Don't get me wrong, the sets, the colors, all of it actually looks really good, and it almost looks like a post-processing color that they did to it. I'm sure they did have to color grade, but to me, I was like, I'm like, how did they do it? Did they shoot it in color, make it black and white, and then recolor it? Or did they take away the black and white? Like, is this how it was shot? Because sometimes it seems like some parts are kind of black and white. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think that they shot it in color, made it then black and white, and then put some color on top of the black and white. Because there could be a difference between that versus just taking away the black and white in Premiere Pro or whatever software they use to do it. But yeah, it in color, it seemed like an easy, I could be totally wrong, it seemed like an easy thing to kind of release this year, kind of remind us that Werewolf by Night came out, which it did. It reminded me, I'm like, hey, you didn't watch it last year, it's been a whole year, you're covering Marvel stuff, why not watch it now? So I did. So if it is an advertisement for the original Werewolf by Night, it did a good job there. If it's supposed to be a different version, okay, I can see that. Maybe they don't want to scare the kids with a black and white version because there is something scarier about that than this one. Then okay, but I don't know. It's up to you, whatever your kids watch. I don't know why they did it. Maybe it's just an easy cash grab. It definitely brought me back into it, and it made me excited of what could be with the Marvel Universe. So definitely give Werewolf by Night a watch. a little bit of fun on this Halloween. Let me know some of your favorite horror comics by Marvel, by others. I know there's a million other horror comics out there. I think Scott Snyder has done a bunch of horrors, which, by the way, let me show you this. I love American Vampire, absolutely adore it. And my friend actually got me, try not to spill my coffee. My friend actually got me American Vampire #1, graded. I think it was my birthday last year. So shout out to Chad for that. I absolutely love American Vampire by Scott Snyder. Let me know some of your favorite horror comics, horror movies. If there's anything else you want me to cover in this format, let me know. And we're gonna be playing Alan Wake 2 more throughout the week, just to make it the scary week. And maybe we'll continue with some other scary stuff too down the line. I absolutely love horror, love this time of year, and watching this really did kind of jumpstart the horror feelings for me, the scary season feelings for me. So happy Halloween, everyone. I hope everyone has a great day and night, and we'll see you next time on Nerddom.